From far away, the Haddle 7 belt looked like a silver crown of light, but as you drew closer, it was more like a graveyard. Thousands of wrecked ships were pulled into orbit, colliding and locking together until they formed a chaotic shell around a dead moon. In this place, no one asked why you came, and no one cared how you left. Broken ships, flickering warning lights, scaffolds of scrap metal, Haddle 7 was a wound in the galaxy that never healed. Ari Hale, captain of the small cargo ship Juniper, hated stopping here, but the ship's reactor core was failing, red alarms flashing. His storage hold was full of recycled alloy plates from the last job. Without trading for a new core at Haddle 7, he would never make it to the next sector. The Juniper looked tiny among these rusted giants, like a lost bird circling a flock of vultures. The black market of Haddle 7 did not rest on the moon itself. It drifted in orbit, stitched together from broken ship hulls. Stalls glowed with false phosphor lights, neon signs blinked unevenly, and the recycled air smelled of ozone and burnt oil. Here, you could buy anything: armor plates, plasma weapons with barrels removed, even the biological goods outlawed by the Alliance. Ari thought he was used to this scene, but then a hoarse voice called out, "Seraph interface disabled." He turned. On a platform sat a girl, locked into a magnetic chair. Straps of cold blue light pinned her body in place. The screen displayed her name, Neris. She was Seraphid, one of the so-called Lightwing people, a species whose glowing nerve clusters rose from their backs, half sense organ, half weapon. But her wings had been cut away at the root. What remained were burned scars and sealed wounds. Neris sat motionless. Her face was hollow. Her eyes, glass-like, seemed to look straight through the world. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale, her neural rhythm unstable. Classic signs of disconnect syndrome, what happened when a Seraphid was torn from the communal chorus of her kind. For her people, losing that connection meant losing the self. The seller, a man in a rusted steel breather mask, tapped the chair casually. Biological scrap, wings cut, nerves burned. Can't sing, can't fly, can't sink, but still alive. Could sell for lab tests or decoration. Who buys? The crowd chuckled and walked on. To them, a wingless Seraphid was no better than a bird with clipped wings. Useless, pathetic, and unwanted. But Ari did not walk away. He stood longer than he should have, staring into her glass-colored eyes. There was no plea there, no cry for help. Only the emptiness of someone who had grown used to being unseen, and somehow it made his chest heavy. "She's a person," Ari said quietly, firmly. "Not a product." The seller barked a laugh. "A person? Don't fool yourself. Among Seraphids, losing wings means losing your name. Even her own people abandoned her. You want to play hero? Pay up. Dignity here has a price tag." Ari clenched his jaw. He had almost nothing left. The Juniper barely carried enough medicine and fuel to finish the trip. But those empty eyes, know that complete absence inside them, hit him harder than any market shout. He pulled out an emergency power cell, a box of medical antiseptics, and worst of all, half a canister of rare fuel he had saved for the return journey. "Enough!" The seller shrugged, scanned the data, and nodded. "Generous, take her." Ari unlatched the glowing restraints and lifted Neris from the chair. Her body was shockingly light, almost weightless, skin and bone, nothing more. She didn't resist, didn't react, her eyes still locked on the empty air in front of her. Juniper left Haddle 7 just as a storm of metallic dust swept across the belt. Shards of wreckage rained against the hull, clattering like hailstones. Neris sat silent in the passenger seat. No words, no tears, only the gaze of someone who had already been erased from the world. Ari rested his hand on the armrest of her chair, leaning close so his voice cut through the storm outside. "On this ship, no one belongs to anyone. You are Neris, and you are safe." In that moment, Juniper did not just carry another passenger. It carried a story once thrown away. and the fragile spark of a fire being lit again in the endless dark. The juniper was old and small, but to Ari, it was home. After leaving Haddle 7, he spent the long stretch of empty space turning the ship's back compartment into a place for Neris to rest. He covered the oil-stained walls with sheets of silver insulation. He adjusted the air filters to hold more moisture, easing the dryness in Seraphid lungs. He even dug out an old resonance stabilizer, an ancient device once used to calm alien animals during transport. Cheap, half-broken, but Ari rebuilt it and mounted it near her chair. It helped soften the sharp nerve pain that racked her body. Neris never spoke. Most of the time, she sat in the magnetic chair, staring out the window at stars and shadows. Ari knew that feeling, looking at the void until it felt like looking into a mirror, seeing yourself as nothing but dust adrift. He didn't force her to talk. He let silence ride with them, part of the journey. At night, after checking the engines, Ari would bring out a worn book from Earth, ancient songs. He read it aloud, slow and steady, even when the faded words made him stumble. He wasn't sure Neris was listening. But sometimes when he looked up, he caught her tilting her head. Her lips would move just slightly, as if repeating a sound. Once, her people had light wings, bundles of glowing nerves that rose from the back. They used them to join the Seraphid chorus, a shared network of voice, thought, and emotion. They didn't need words, but with her wings cut away, Neris had lost more than flight. She had lost her voice. Disconnect syndrome left every breath jagged, every heartbeat out of tune. Ari noticed she trembled whenever the ship shifted direction. So he built a stabilizing belt from spare sensors, wrapping it around her waist. The belt sent out gentle pulses to help her body balance again. The first time it hummed to life, Neris leaned forward suddenly, eyes wide, then turned toward Ari with the faintest trace of surprise. One night, Ari drifted asleep in the pilot's chair. A sound startled him awake. Not an alarm, not a fault, it was coming from her cabin. A soft sequence of notes, so faint it could have been glass humming. A Seraphid resonance call, the instinctive song used to reach for their kind. Neris was dreaming. And then something impossible happened. Juniper answered. Its crooked fans rattled in rhythm with her call, clumsy and uneven, but alive. For a moment, the ship was singing back. Ari chuckled under his breath, leaning against the door frame. When Neris stirred awake, he murmured, half-joking, "If you need a chorus, my ship only has a broken fan, but I don't think it'll let you sing alone." Her lips curved into the smallest, fragile smile. Then she whispered, voice weak but steady, "Warm enough." In that moment, the juniper wasn't just a machine of metal. It was an instrument. A place where a wingless girl's lost song could find an answer. Later that night, before sleep, Ari stared into the fogged mirror of the washroom. "No one's junk," he told his reflection. "You just need the right frequency." In the cabin next door, Neris pressed her hand against her chest, counting each heartbeat. And for the first time in years, she felt like someone was listening. On the 10th morning aboard Juniper, Ari searched the storage bay for spare thermal conduits. The place was a forgotten vault, metal dust thick on every surface, wooden crates stacked beside rusting alloy boxes. When he dragged out a small chest, something heavy rolled free. A badge, obsidian black, carved in the shape of a spiral claw. Its weight didn't match its size. Ari frowned, turning it in his hand. Probably a war trophy, left over from Juniper's previous owner, a smuggler who once crossed Seraphid battle lines. He wiped the dust off and set it on the console, just a curiosity. But when Neris passed by, she froze, her entire body trembled. Both hands clutched the armrest of her chair. "Put it down," she whispered, voice rough but firm. Ari obeyed instantly. "What is it? Some kind of military mark?" She was silent for several breaths. Then, with a shudder in her voice, she answered, "That used to be mine." Ari went still. Neris leaned back, eyes drifting far beyond the walls of the ship, as if yanked into memories she never wanted to revisit. And for the first time, she told her story. She had not always been broken. Before the night of shattered song, Neris had been a conductor of the Kaitone Chorus, the Seraphid Defense Ensemble. In every generation, only a few were chosen to keep the rhythm of resonance, controlling the light shield that protected their homeworld. For her, song was not art, it was power. It was the heartbeat of an entire planet. At 14, she led the title hymn that shattered a syndicate raiding fleet. By 18, her name was sung across 3 moons as a beacon of faith. She had believed her voice could never be lost because it was who she was. But then came the night of shattered song. A new weapon, the resonance nullifier, exploded in the middle of a battle chorus. Their harmony shattered. The chorus fell as one like severed strings. Neris survived, but her light wings burned, her nerves destroyed, her body broken. She woke in a medic ward, swaddled in bandages, only to hear her sentence. Useless, unfit to lead. Her laugh was bitter, sharp. They didn't kill me. They did worse. They erased me, from records, from memory, as if I never existed. Ari sat in silence. He knew the weight of silence could crush harder than screams. Neris placed a trembling hand over her chest. Without resonance, I lost everything. Friends avoided me. Mentors looked at me like a stain. In the end, they sold me off like broken cargo, and you've seen the rest. The only sound in the cabin was the steady breath of the air filters. Ari studied her. Then, without a word, he pulled a repair marker from his toolkit and scrawled across the engine room wall in bold strokes. Neris, conductor. She blinked, startled. "What are you doing?" "Putting your name back," Ari said, "in a place no one can erase. They can cut wings, wipe records, but they can't take away what made you powerful. What they feared wasn't your wings, it was your voice." Neris bowed her head. Her shoulders shook. A single tear slid down her cheek. For the first time in years, she cried, not from pain, but because someone still believed she had worth. That night, Ari played an old Earth recording, the sound of rain striking a tin roof. 1,000 tiny drops like strings plucked at once. Neris closed her eyes, breathed deep, and released a single note. Fragile, faint, but pure, the juniper answered. Its panels hummed, warning lights flickering in rhythm as if the ship itself was listening and singing along. Ari leaned back in his chair, smiling softly. "See, your voice was never gone. It was just waiting for the right ear." Neris said nothing, but in her glass-like eyes, a faint spark flickered. A star reborn after the storm. Ari knew Neris didn't need a combat exoskeleton. That would only turn her into a machine of violence. What she needed was a body that could listen, to rhythm, to balance, to herself. So he chose another path. He built a resonance frame. It was a spine-like arc, threaded with graphene filaments fine as silk, running along her back and linked directly to Juniper's vibration sensors. It wouldn't make her stronger. It added no weapons, no armor, but it could translate the broken signals from her nervous system into stable pulses, helping her stand, helping her walk, and maybe, just maybe, helping her sing again. The work took many nights. Ari stripped wires from old plasma conduits, pulled coils out of burnt-out magnets, scavenged sensors from junk bins. Slowly, he pieced together a frame that curved gently along Neris's spine. To attach it, he placed dozens of electrodes across her skin. When his hand brushed her shoulder for the first time, she shivered. Not from pain, but because it had been so long since anyone touched her with such patient care. "Are you sure you want to try this?" Ari asked. Neris only nodded, her eyes steady though her lips pressed tight. The first test, faint blue light spread across the frame. Neris closed her eyes, drew a deep breath. Her useless legs shifted, trembled, and then she stood. 3 seconds, then balance failed, and she collapsed into Ari's arms. But when she looked up, she was smiling through tears. 3 seconds, she whispered, is still a song. Ari brushed the sweat from her forehead and grinned. Then tomorrow we sing the chorus. The days that followed turned Juniper into a rehearsal hall. Ari tuned the ship's engine rumble into a steady beat. Every step she tried, he adjusted the frame, trimming delays, widening amplitude, smoothing the rhythm. At first, she managed only half a step before falling. By the third day, 4 steps. By the 7th, the entire ship seemed to hum like an orchestra as Neris pushed herself across the cabin, sweat running down her face until she reached the forward window. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Outside, star jellies drifted, vast, glowing creatures, their bodies shimmering like floating lanterns. Normally, they swam aimlessly. But when Neris released a single note, cracked, uneven, but clear, the whole swarm shifted together, spiraling in perfect arcs, as if the universe itself was answering her. Neris broke down in tears, not of sorrow, but of wonder. For the first time in years, her song had been heard. "You," she choked, "you just taught the universe to keep time for me." Ari laughed, sitting beside her. "I only did the easy part. The hard part was you choosing to stand." In that moment, Juniper wasn't a cargo hauler anymore. It was a hall of resonance where a wingless girl found her feet and her voice again. Not to return to what she was, but to step forward into something new. Neris closed her eyes. She felt the frame hum through her spine, through the ship, and out into the star fields beyond. For the first time, she didn't feel cut off from the cosmos. She was part of it, one fragile note, yes, but never silent. Neris's music was never just a melody. It was a signal. When the resonance frame translated her broken neural pulses into waves, her song slipped past Juniper's low-band shields. In deep space, rare frequencies don't disappear. They bounce. They spread, and eventually they find hungry ears. 3 days after Neris first walked again, Ari noticed something strange. On the radar screen, a narrow pulse appeared. Not random. A target lock. He swore under his breath and scrambled to shift frequencies. Too late. Out of the haze around Juniper, 3 ships decloaked. 2 bore the mark of the Hellion Syndicate, slave runners, infamous for harvesting biological cargo. The third was sleeker, painted obsidian black. Across its prow gleamed the sigil of Praetor Voss, the very man who had engineered the Night of Broken Choirs. Ari gripped the controls so hard his knuckles whitened. "They've found you." Neris froze inside her resonance frame. Her lips moved around a single name like a scar reopening. "Voss!" A voice cracked across the open channel. Rough, mocking. "The product still sings. Hand it over and we'll leave your rust bucket in one piece." Then another voice followed, cold as a knife. "Neris, still making noise? I thought I broke you once. Don't make me do it again." Ari cut the channel. His eyes never left hers. "They want you as a trophy or to erase you for good. What do you want?" Neris trembled, then bit down hard on her lip. No more running. He led her down to the engine bay where the resonance frame connected directly to Juniper's core. "If you're going to sing," he said, "let the ship sing with you. But remember, you choose the melody." The hold vibrated as Neris stepped into the center. The frame lit in violet, electrical pulses rippling down her spine like the opening bars of a silent hymn. Outside, the raiders prepared magnetic clamps to seize the hull. But then Neris opened her mouth. A single seraphid note escaped, fragile, uneven. The frame amplified it, spinning it into a standing wave that shook the chamber. The Juniper's engines joined in, a low mechanical drone becoming the bassline. Together, they formed a chorus of resonance that rolled outward through the ship's plating. The moment the raiders' boots hit the hull, their weapons died. Plasma charges fizzled. Detonators glitched. Exosuits convulsed under feedback. Their displays blinked once, twice, then blacked out. One by one, the mercenaries collapsed, stunned, as if lulled to sleep inside a storm of sound. Silence followed. Then Ari's voice rang across the calm, steady and unyielding. "Juniper isn't your battlefield. Leave now or hear the rest of the chorus." The two Hellion ships hesitated, then peeled away, vanishing into the dark. But Voss's craft remained, hanging like a vulture over prey. His voice oozed back, low and poisonous. "The broken doll thinks she's a conductor. Don't forget, girl, songs can move hearts, but they can also silence whole worlds." And then his ship faded from radar, leaving only the chill of his words behind. Neris slumped to the floor, sweat pouring down her face. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned bright. You just proved," Ari finished, "that your song can silence weapons." Neris lifted her gaze. Her glass-like eyes reflected the glow of the resonance frame. For the first time, they held not emptiness, but resolve. "I will not be silent again." Ari nodded once. "Then from now on, the whole galaxy will have to listen." Juniper drifted forward into the starfield. Both Ari and Neris knew they weren't just fugitives anymore. They had become a frequency worth hunting and a beacon not easily extinguished. After the encounter with Praetor Voss, Ari knew Juniper couldn't keep running forever. They needed information, needed to know why the slavers hunted Neris so relentlessly. The trace signal led them to Heliast Prime, a planet wrapped in forests of ion clouds and towering data spires. The greatest of them all was the Illusion Tower, a half-legal marketplace where memories, recordings, and neural echoes were traded like currency. Juniper docked at a spiral platform. The city shimmered with hololight, as if the entire place lived inside a permanent dream. Streets folded with illusions layered on illusions. Passers-by wore glowing masks to hide their faces, and every voice was filtered into strange musical tones. Ari distrusted it, but he knew. If anywhere still kept records of the Night of Broken Choirs and of Neris's lost legacy, it was here. Inside the tower's great hall, walls of glass displayed thousands of memories drifting like bubbles. A mercenary dying, a child laughing, a battlefield burning. Buyers simply touched a sphere, paid a fee, and owned an experience as if it were theirs. Here, memories had become money. Neris stopped cold. The resonance frame at her back trembled, the graphene filaments glowing faintly. She felt it, the fractured vibrations of seraphid choruses, torn apart and trapped here. The voices of her people, reduced to merchandise. They've imprisoned their songs, she whispered, her eyes glistening, fixed on the floating spheres. Ari's jaw tightened, his fists curled. "Then we take them back, not just for you, for all of them." They approached a data kiosk where a transaction AI appeared, projected as a silver-robed woman. "What are you looking for?" Her voice sang like strings on a harp. "The record of the Night of Broken Choirs," Ari said flatly. The AI paused, then smirked. "Rare stock, restricted, only for those with the credits or the courage." Ari tossed a packet of rare fuel and a security chip on the counter. But before the AI could process, Neris stepped forward. She placed her trembling hand on the holo surface. The resonance frame synced, releasing a single crystalline note. The memory spheres shook. Several cracked open, flooding the hall with violet light. For a heartbeat, the entire crowd froze in silence. "I don't buy memories," Neris whispered. "I call them home." The tower trembled. From deep within its core, images burst forth, armies of seraphid, skies lit with radiant wings, the grand chorus rising, and then the blinding detonation of the resonance nullifier. In the chaos, one image burned clear. Neris, wings of light spread wide, leading the final song before it all collapsed. The crowd gasped. They didn't just see the memory, they heard it. The lost voices rose again, layered with Neris's trembling song. Even hardened traders wiped their eyes, not knowing why the sound cut so deep. Ari surged forward, seizing the core recording before the system locked it away. He turned to Neris, who was shaking, but her eyes blazed with light. "You just woke the entire tower," Ari said. Her chest heaved and she nodded. "It's time the galaxy remembers we were never silent." But from above, crimson alarms flared. Security units flooded the hall, weapons drawn. And leading them, projected across every glass wall, was Praetor Voss himself, his holographic face sneering down. "Still you, Neris," his voice hissed. "You mean to show the galaxy that disgrace of a recording? Then I'll erase you and the entire choir with you." Lasers swept the hall. The tower became a battlefield of light. Juniper waited in orbit, but time was running out. Ari gripped Neris's hand. "We leave together, but not with just a memory, this time with your song." Neris met his gaze. The graphene strands of her frame flared, brighter than ever, as if tuning for a battle area. The news spread faster than any trade signal. Neris was alive, and she was singing again. Within a week, the entire choir assembly, the ruling body of the Seraphid, was in uproar. Those who had cheered at the Night of Broken Choirs now feared her return would expose the truth they buried. To silence the rumors, they issued a summons. Everyone knew it was no invitation, it was a command. Neris had to face the trial of echoes, an ancient rite that decided who still had the right to be called a conductor of song. It was no duel, no bloodshed, but harsher than both. The challenger had to weave a lost harmony before tens of thousands of listening ears. Succeed, and their name was restored. Fail, and they were branded a false voice, erased forever from the collective memory, a fate crueler than death. And Voss, of course, was chosen to witness it. He wanted to see her fall with his own eyes. The trial was held in the Crystal Resonance Hall, a massive structure orbiting the Seraphid homeworld. There were no microphones, no wires, because here, the air itself was the mic. Every wall of crystal vibrated with each syllable, amplifying even the smallest tremor. A stumble would become thunder. A shallow breath would scar the space itself. Ari followed the escort in, his pulse pounding harder than Neris's. He had seen her stand. He had heard her sing again. But this was different. This was the cradle that had birthed her and the same cradle that had cast her out as trash. He didn't trust the assembly. He trusted Voss even less, smiling coldly from the high dais. Neris walked to the center. The resonance frame hovered behind her like a crooked halo, no radiant wings now, only strips of graphene glowing blue and violet, scars stitched into light. The crowd whispered. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. The crystal thrones began the opening pulse. The trial had begun. Neris drew in breath, opened her mouth. The first note collapsed. It slipped, off-key, dragged down by old wounds. The crystal walls thundered back a harsh echo. The crowd stirred, the whispers colder than any wind. From the gallery, Ari's eyes locked on the spectrum display. He saw it instantly. The resonance frame was misaligned. The hall's natural frequency was off by a fraction, 0.001 hertz. To the perfect Seraphid, it was nothing. But to Neris, it was a chasm. He sprinted to a hidden console. Fingers flying, he linked to Juniper, waiting outside the hall. He tuned the ship's engines, nudged the harmonic up by 1,000th. Just one, just enough to shift the foundation toward her. Beside him, Sana, the neutral engineer who had been watching, glanced over, surprised. Then she gave the smallest nod. Hold it there. Perfect. In the center, Neris closed her eyes. She knew she could never imitate the voice she once had. That voice had burned away with her wings. If she clung to it, she would shatter. For the first time, she let it go. She stopped searching for her old song. Instead, she chose a new one, rough, metallic, uneven, like someone learning to walk again after a storm. Fragile, but unyielding. At first, the tone jarred. Then, strangely, it began to align. The crystal walls didn't reject it. They lit up, glowing silver blue. Ancient runes etched into the stone twisted, reshaped, shifting to follow her rhythm. They didn't correct her voice, they adapted to it. The hall filled with light. The whispers died. No one was hearing a copy of a lost harmony anymore. They were hearing something reborn, music stitched from brokenness, carried by an artificial frame, turned into something the world had never heard before. The trial ended. No applause, no cheers, only silence. The kind of silence that exists only in places where something true has just been spoken. Neris opened her eyes. Her breath came fast, sweat glistening on her hair, but her gaze was bright, burning. She hadn't just proven she could still sing. She had declared something greater. Sometimes it is the fracture that creates the music the world needs most. Voss sat frozen. He did not clap. He said nothing. But his tightened jaw was proof enough. For this moment, he had lost. From the gallery, Ari's chest ached. He pressed a hand against the glass, whispering so only he could hear, "You just made an entire world listen." The echoes of the trial still shimmered in the crystal walls when Voss rose to his feet. His dark cloak spilled across the floor, his voice booming like thunder, dripping with venom. "This is not rebirth, this is corruption." She broke the pattern, shattered the rhythm. "A wingless cripple dares to redefine tradition? I demand her name erased forever, so our people will never again bear such shame." The chamber trembled with tension. The crystal walls hummed low, resonating with anger, 1,000 eyes fixed on Neris. Voss believed he had seized the moment. But from the gallery, Sana stepped forward. She was no singer, no Seraphid elder, just an engineer carrying a wrist drive strapped to her arm. Calmly, she cast a stream of data into the air. Symbols bloomed in glowing holograms, spinning like rings of stars. The official wing-severing logs, proof that Neris's wounds were no accident, but ordered directly by Voss. The syndicate contracts, signed in his hand, selling stripped Seraphids as biological stock. The schematics of the resonance nullifier, his electronic signature still intact, exposing him as the true architect of the Night of Broken Choirs. The resonance in the hall shifted. No longer the blind echo of outrage, this was fury, collective and sharp. The crystal walls vibrated like drawn blades. Some elders flinched. From outside, voices rose, a chant of Neris's name. Voss faltered. His face twisted as he triggered his weapon of control, the silence field. A storm of dark frequencies poured down, crushing every note in its path. This was the same force that had once silenced Neris for years, but this time she did not resist head-on. She lowered her voice, softer, smaller, until her tones slipped beneath the silence field, weaving through cracks no one had thought to look for. And in that narrow band, something remarkable happened. Other voices joined her. The child Seraphids born with broken wings who had never found the rhythm. The elders half-deaf who could never match the pitch. The accident-scarred, the misaligned, the forgotten. Their tones were weak, offbeat, imperfect, but they were real. The floor quivered, gentle as a trembling heart in winter. Neris opened her eyes and looked straight at the council. No one is born at the perfect volume. Tradition only lives if it makes space for the weakest voice. Otherwise, it's nothing but chains made of song. The hall fell silent, and then, for the first time, Voss himself was struck dumb. Not from fear, but from his own weapon. The silence field buckled, feeding back into his throat. His voice fractured, notes breaking apart into static. His face drained of color as realization struck. Sana had rewritten the algorithm, building in a moral lock. Praetor Voss, the man who had silenced thousands, was now mute. The chamber erupted, not with laughter, but with a unified chord of agreement. An elder struck her staff on the crystal floor. Rings of light spiraled upward as her voice rang clear. The council declares, "The name of Neris shall be restored to our chronicles." Voss's division is dissolved, and from this day forward, an open resonance program shall begin, so that every voice, broken or whole, will have a place in our song. Above them, the name Neris blazed across the dome of crystal, shining like a newborn constellation. Ari turned toward her. Her glass-like eyes shimmered with light, not just reflection, but something new. Not grief, not emptiness. A rising dawn. She had won, not by power, but by teaching her people the lesson of one who had once lost her voice. Neris never returned to the throne. She never sat in the high seat the council once promised her. She didn't want to be a symbol locked away behind ritual walls. Instead, with Ari at her side, she chose something unexpected. Beacon's Acre, a moon draped in glowing moss, drifting quietly at the edge of Hellion's orbit, belonging to no one. There, they built the open choir station. No gates, no permits, only a resonance frame standing in the middle of a luminous plain, where every voice, broken or whole, had a place. Children of the Seraphid who had lost their wings came to practice balance on soft sound cushions instead of feathers. Refugees from other species gathered beneath glowing mushroom forests, listening to the quiet hours with background music, each hour led by a different group. Wanderer mechanics learned how to tune their engines with their own voices, saving fuel by finding the right pitch. The juniper became bus, hostel, and sometimes stage. Some days it ferried students in for lessons on the basics of vibration. Other days it hovered between drifting star fields, while Neris taught children how to weave melody into falling stars, leaving streaks of light that vanished quickly but carried meaning. When Ari wasn't steering, he sat with a wrench and a valve, muttering the little melodies the children had just taught him, his hands oily and his smile unguarded. One evening, a merchant vessel limped into the station, reactor chamber aflame, heat spiking toward explosion. No weapons could stop it. No tools could strip it fast enough. Panic spread. Neris stepped forward. She linked her resonance frame into the ship's sensors. Ari raised his voice above the fear. "Don't panic, just sing." And they sang, not a hymn, not a grand choir. Just simple notes, steady and plain, yet together they formed a rhythm. The resonance smoothed the reactor's screaming curve, damped the fire, pulled it back down. In 10 minutes, the danger was gone. No bombs, no guns, only a chorus keeping time. Word spread fast. They began to call Neris the keeper of rhythm, the one who could force even chaos to breathe evenly. And Ari? The children teased him as the fan mender of the stars, forever tinkering with vents and engines, keeping the song alive. He pretended to grumble, but the smile betrayed him every time. In that quiet stretch of peace, there were no grand vows, no ceremonies, no contracts. Neris and Ari gave each other only a simple promise, to be there when the other needed them. And that was enough to build a home. Peace had barely taken root when Sanaa brought a faint signal from the unmapped edge of space. A strange world, small, fragile, like a lost note falling out of the galaxy's great symphony. Sensors showed its magnetic core had slipped out of rhythm. Its atmosphere was tearing apart. If no one resets the timing, Sanaa whispered, this planet will stop breathing. Ari looked at Neris. She said nothing, only nodded. Together they turned the juniper into an orbital instrument. Ari rigged arrays of sensors, syncing Neris's resonance frame to the planet's magnetic tides. When the ship slid into orbit, its entire hull vibrated as if the juniper itself had become a colossal stringed harp. Neris stepped into the control chamber. The frame on her back glowed. She opened her voice, not high, not loud, but steady. The note carried outward, folding into waves that touched the torn skies. Piece by piece, the planet responded. Gashes in the clouds drew shut, like wounds remembering how to close. Storm vortices stilled. The seas eased their trembling. And for the first time in centuries, that little world took a slow, even breath. Ari stood beside her, silent, overwhelmed. He reached for her hand, He didn't squeeze, he only held. "We're not here to fix the universe," he murmured. "We're here to remind it how to breathe." When the juniper lifted from orbit, Neris sat with her journal and wrote, "I once believed I was only silence, but silence was simply where the song begins." The ship drifted on through the starfield, not chased by old powers anymore, only guided by the quiet invitations of places that needed rhythm. In the co-pilot's seat, Neris leaned her forehead gently against Ari's, an unspoken ritual that belonged to them alone. Beyond the glass, the constellations hummed, not loudly, not fiercely, but without fading. And in the center of that soft chorus, two voices had finally found home.